It'll fly into my mouth. Okay, we got to get this done, Gretch, but we got to have some fun this morning. Okay, here's what we're going to do. This is for you guys and anybody who's watching at home. I don't know, Joe, if we're going yet, but here we go. Today, just, kind of keep your score to yourself. We'll kind of, Scouts honor, honor system thing. We'll see who has the best score at the end. We got a little quiz for you. It's an Independence Day quiz, okay? This is Independence Day weekend, and so we just thought we'll see what you guys know, okay? So, Gretch, you take the first one.
Okay, and how many states were involved in the signing of the Declaration of Independence?
Shout out an answer if you just... 13? 13? 13? Go ahead.
It was none.
They were not states yet.
They were not states yet. But I heard 13 colonies.
Somebody said colonies.
Yeah, it's over here in this
I think
area.
Sandy said that. I think, Sandy, you get the point for that. Trick question. You're supposed to go, trick question, y'all.
I'm sorry, trick question.
Okay, here we go. Just shout it out. If you get it, you get it. You know you got it. Who wrote it primarily?
Franklin.
Thomas Jefferson.
Nice, good job.
Go ahead, Gretch.
Who was the first signer?
Yes.
Yes, he was.
John Hancock.
That was it.
And there's also his signature is the biggest one. So when you
right.
look at it, you'll notice that one first.
John Hancock.
Yeah, and that's the one that people, that's why people say, hey, put your John Hancock on something. That means your signature. Okay, what is the famous typo? The famous typo, the something spelled wrong. Pennsylvania is spelled wrong. Now, I don't know if they changed it, but I think in the original, if you look at the original, Pennsylvania only has one N. It's pretty silly, but okay, Gretch, go ahead.
When was the finalized document actually signed?
Not hearing it.
Keep trying.
What the finalized actual document was not signed on July 4th.
It was August.
August of 1776. Okay.
That was close.
You know where? Come on, people. Philadelphia, my place, my home.
In Philly.
Philly is one of the only good things that ever happened. Okay. Who was the oldest signer? Benjamin Franklin is right.
Good job,
Anybody know his age? You know his age, John? 81. You were close. You were close. Something interesting I just read last night, actually. Many of the signers, a good handful of them, were like under 30. They're really young, some of them. Go ahead, Gretch.
Okay. Who are the two missing founders who instinctively aren't
Whose
on the
names,
document?
interestingly, sorry, I didn't write that very good.
What did you say?
Whose names, interestingly,
Who interestingly, I can't even say that, interestingly. Who you read it?
whose names interestingly don't. I gave that to her just because I knew it would be cute. I knew it would be cute for you to fumble all over it. Instinctively, interestingly, don't appear on the document. Two names that don't appear on it.
How would I know? Because they don't appear.
Thomas Jefferson is not on it, and neither is John Adams. Both of those guys were overseas during the actual signing. How many signers in all?
56.
What did you say? 56 is right. 56. Go ahead, Gretch.
I think John wins.
So far, he's doing really good.
Who were declaring our independence from? Who were we declaring our
Who were we?
Were we declaring
See,
our
this isn't so
independence
easy
from?
being up here, is it?
It's not. I'm like
Yes,
nervous.
Great Britain, and namely, who's the king?
Who's the king?
George the Third. And then last one. What war was already going on at the signing? 1775 to 1783. This was new to me. I showed you how much I listened in high school. It's the American Revolutionary War. A lot of people think that started because of the Declaration of Independence, but the war was already going on, and the Declaration signing was in the middle of that. Pretty interesting. Okay, anyway, anybody get over 5? John, you did, right?
John did.
Anybody else? Gary did? How about over 6?
I bet it was John.
You guys kind of win. You guys get the gold star for the day.
Can I have that hat while
Can you guys say thank you to Gretchen?
I'm not going to make him wear that.
Okay. let's get to some serious stuff. I got good stuff for you here, and I don't want to go too fast. We might go a little over because we're having some fun, but not too far over. Really quick, something, this is funny. I'm going to admit that we're in Galatians, by the way. If you want to get ready to read where we're going to be, we'll be 4:21 through 5:15 is what we're going to read today. And the sermon title is Living Free. Isn't it cool? Guys, I said this to a friend the other day. I said, it's so wild because I'm in Galatians, and it just so happened that we came upon Galatians on Father's Day when it was talking about calling him Abba Father. And I didn't plan that. And I said, oh my goodness, it just fell in that now we're going to be talking about freedom on Independence Day weekend. And I said to my friend, I go, God's making me look really smart. And my friend goes, you don't look that smart. It's pretty funny. Anyway, it's interesting to think about this weekend and what we are celebrating. Well, I say it's interesting because, and believe me, if any of my history teachers or any of my friends that were in any of my classes in high school, they would be laughing if they thought one day I would be talking history with a bunch of people. I'm not a history buff. I'm kind of learning more and more now that I see how important and cool it is. Maybe I didn't have such good teachers. I don't know. But as I look at the Declaration of Independence and what we did, the 13 colonies breaking away from what they called this tyrannical rule from King George. And what's interesting, there's 27, they call them the 27 grievances that are listed in the Declaration. You can look those up. Those 27 grievances really aim at King George as being a tyrant. Really fascinating. Some of the demands, like the taxation abuses. They had all these taxation abuses where it seemed that some history, you'll read it, and what it looks like is that King George just sort of arbitrarily would tax people for whatever reasons, and they never had representation from any kind of people that represented the communities to have a say. So when it was sort of like, hey, I need some money, I'm taxing you for what you're doing right now, kind of thing. It was sort of arbitrary. And so they called it taxation without representation, like we're supposed to have today. That's why we vote for representatives and state people to go and be our voice, right? They didn't have that. Now, the reason I say it's interesting is because the Declaration itself made King George look really bad. But you can read whole historical other documentation about King George that say he was actually not a tyrant. In fact, some things that I read said he was a pretty good guy. He may have even been a pretty good, solid Christian. Really fascinating. What they really say is that his hands were tied to Parliament. That it was actually Parliament that, between the two of them, were so oppressive. And that was what we were trying to escape from. But it is interesting to think, it's just like, and I'm not trying to be anti-government, but it's just like sometimes our shady people in the government, even the good people, that sometimes will have to word something legally or a document to kind of go, hey, if we don't do it this way, it's not going to pass. So we really need to make it look bad. We're going to make it look like, And it may have also been based on how they felt King. Maybe they were kinds of going, King George, you should be having a bigger say, and you're not, so we're blaming you. I mean, that's kind of how the Declaration may have been written. I don't know, and I don't know enough about it, but I think it's fascinating. They were forcing troops and soldiers to be able to just live with people. That if they were in the middle of a war or whatever, they imagine that you're just making dinner one night and you get this knock on the door and there's 10 guys from a troop that are going, we not only demand shelter, but you had to feed them, you had to care for their needs, you had to run out the store and get them something, whatever it was. You were not allowed to turn that down at all. That's kind of what was going on too. And I'll mention one other one. There was really no fair system of justice like we have today. It really did seem like you were getting in trouble for something. You had zero representation except for what Parliament and King George would tell you. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it was based on how they were feeling that day, how much trouble you got in. There was really no good system of justice. The things that we have in this country, whether they were a little shady how we developed them or whatever we got into, the more and more I look into stuff, especially Do not let people tell you that we were not based on Christian standard beliefs when these guys were writing stuff. Even the guys that have been shown to be somewhat not Christian or not God believers, they clearly have letters and different things that you can look up yourself to see that they were definitely going, we need to follow God's standard here. So, and that's just to say the ones that we say really weren't Christian. Even those guys would write Christian stuff. Our Constitution and everything about our country is definitely grounded in Christian values and beliefs. Do not let anybody tell you anything different. Does it get shady and get weird and sometimes things go off the page and that kind of thing? Well, yeah, we're people. That happens in church too. That happens with how we look at our Bibles. You're going to go to different churches and see different things. Sometimes things go a little off the road. But I'm saying all that to say it's nice to be living in this country free, to do what we're doing. And it's funny how today in Galatians we're going to talk about freedom. It's wild. I couldn't believe when I saw how it just happened to work into this time. So what we're going to do, I'm going to read our section. I'm only going to stop to explain a couple things. So in a way, that'll be a little bit exegetical, but we're going to mostly be expository. Yeah? What? Yeah, please. I think me up here, I just start going, yeah, now I can see you guys better. So I want to just make a couple points because Paul does, and we'll bring them out. And then I really want to just end today with looking at really our psychology on something. I'll just have 4 points at the end. And to me, these are what I'm excited to share with you. But let's read. We're going to start, like I said, in Galatians. I forgot to put the pictures. This is a snapshot taken when they were signing it. Anyway, this is where we're at, guys. Galatians 4:21. That's where we're starting, if you want to follow along. So Paul starts off here. Tell me, you who want to be under the law, do you not listen to the law? So right away, he's going back to this thing we've been talking about. This is why I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this. But he's kind of right away, he's going, you people, and what he means by that want to be under the law, if you remember, just to remind you, what he's saying is, you people who want to find your justification in what you pull off and what you do. How you want to take the law, I'm going to follow these laws, and that will give me a better standing before God. It'll make me a better person, all these things. Paul's saying, if you really want to be under that, do you really want to be under that? So then he goes into this. For it is written that Abraham had two sons, one by the bondwoman and one by the free woman. But the son of the bondwoman was born according to the flesh, and the son of the free woman through the promise. This is allegorically speaking, for these women are two covenants, one proceeding from Mount Sinai, bearing children who are to be slaves. She is Hagar. And now this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to the present Jerusalem, for she is in slavery with her children. But the Jerusalem above is free. She is our mother. What the heck's he talking about? Some of you that have been with us on Wednesday nights for Bible study, you'll start to notice a little bit because we've been talking about this. He's making it clear that he's talking allegorical. And we're going to do that at the end today. We're going to take Paul's kind of his model here of being allegorical. We're going to do that at the end today for us to try to modernize this a bit. But just what he's doing here, when he says he's speaking allegorically, he's saying, don't take this and run with it theologically to kind of make theological points. He's saying, kind of the way I do in our demeanor today, this is sort of like, right? That's kind of what he's doing here. And so even the word allegorical, it's really interesting. The Greek word, I'm not going to try to pronounce this just like it. It sounds exactly like it. It's allegoreo. And it just means to comparatively look, figuratively look. What he's doing here is he's taking the story that they would have all known very well of Abraham and his two wives. He has his wife Sarah, who is found to be barren. I'm going to just quickly make the story here. She's barren, but Abraham has been given a promise. Remember, God says, I'm going to make great nations out of you. He's like, look at the stars, Abraham. from you is going to be more than that, right? And so Abraham looks at Sarah, and she's barren. Just like God, right? Just like God. To say, this is what's going to happen with you, and for you to go, here's a problem, God. Here's a problem I have with your plan, God, right? We talked about that last week. His plans don't always make sense, right? I love how he does that. Do you think maybe he does that so that we will fully trust in him? I think so. So he does that. So what does Abraham do, though? They're kind of talking, and Sarah says, why don't you take my maidservant, her main servant, someone she trusted, that kind of thing. Hagar, why don't you get with her, make kids with her, and we'll make this thing work, okay? I'm not going to get into all of the things back then. What I want you to see, and what Paul's trying to make a deal here of, is the one was under the promise of God. That was Sarah. The other one was under the idea of man. And Paul's going to call that the flesh. Okay? That's all we're doing here. That's all you need to see for now. So continuing on with 7, for it is written, 27, I'm sorry. For it is written, rejoice, barren woman, who does not bear. Break forth and shout, you who are not in labor, for more are the children of the desolate than the one who has a husband. That he's basically, this is when he promises Sarah, it's going to happen, Sarah. Rejoice. But here's what began to happen. So they have kids, okay? So Hagar has Ishmael, and Sarah, remember who she had? Isaac. Isaac, part of the line of promise, okay? So what started happening is, verse 28, and you, brethren, like Isaac, are children of promise. Catch that, guys. Don't just read over that. And you're hearing this. You, brethren, are like Isaac, children of the promise. He's saying this to Gentiles, the Gentile sinning dogs. He's telling them, if you are part of Christ now, if you have given your life to Christ, you are now in this. You are a son of Isaac, a daughter of Isaac. You're part of this promise. It's really cool. They would have known what he was talking about here. It gets a little bit lost on us because we don't look at things the same. We don't do that. We don't have like, hey, maybe you should take her into your tent and have kids with her so we can have generations of people in our family. Like, we don't think like that. This was different back then. And so the idea of, I could just see people like looking at Paul and being like, are you kidding? You just told these Gentiles that they have the same place as us, as people of promise? Isn't that what we've been talking about, though? Isn't that what we said on Father's Day? That you are now a child of God with the Spirit of Christ in you, that you can call him Daddy. Okay? Incredible. And so he's just making another allegory. He's just going, it's kind of like you're not under the man idea, the flesh idea that Abraham came up with. Well, if my real wife that I'm married to is not going to create generations, let's do it the fleshly way. Let's do it with our idea, not God's promise idea. Okay, you get it. You get it. Well, what starts to happen is verse 29. But at that time, he who was born according to the flesh, that's Ishmael, persecuted him who was born according to the Spirit, that was Isaac. So it is now also that what does the Scripture say? Cast out the bondwoman and her son, for the son of the bondwoman shall not be an heir with the son of the free woman. If you guys remember, especially people that went through the Genesis stuff that we talked about on Wednesday night, remember? They cast out. Ishmael has been kind of, I don't know what he was doing, poking fun at Isaac and different things like that, or I'm the first son and you're not really whatever. I don't know what he was doing, but it got to Sarah enough that she went to Abraham and said, you tell them to get out of here. Get them out of here. And so they do. They make them go away. And what seems so rude and mean is really a cool place of promise in God, because God does not just leave them. They go sit somewhere dry and just go, I guess we're going to die. And Hagar's literally going, my son Ishmael, I'm going to watch him die because we have no water, no food, nothing. And God comes to them and says, I'm still going to take care of you. Oh, I love how God does that. There's always this avenue God is trying to make for you to get back home, and it happens there. We don't have time to talk about that, but Paul is just skating over that right now. They would have known that story. So then, brethren, it says in verse 31, so then, brethren, we are not children of a bondwoman, but of a free woman. Take this allegory I just said and understand you are just like the one who stayed home you're in like Flynn. You are part of the promise, okay? He's been saying that to us. He's still trying to get us to catch it. Now, we're about to read one of the more famous verses in the Bible. But I want you to remember that not until 1205 AD did you have chapter breaks. You didn't have chapter breaks and verse breaks. So we need to see chapter 5, verse 1, completely connected to what we just read. So I'm going to read it again. Verse 31 says, so then, brethren, we are not children of the bondwoman, but of the free woman. It was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore, keep standing firm and do not be subject again to a yoke of slavery. Again, why would you want to go back to doing it yourself? Why would you want to go back to something that thousands of years showed we couldn't do it? Why would you go back to that? Jesus gave us an answer to that, a complete answer to that, and you guys want to go back? You want to go back? It never worked before, but you still want to go back to that? So listen how serious Paul gets here. Verse 2 of chapter 5, behold, I, Paul, say to you that if you receive circumcision, Christ will be of no benefit to you. Now what he's saying is, if you decide I need to convert to Judaism, I almost like off the page would almost say like Paul's kind of going, if you got to do that to feel better about yourself, like he's about to address that. And he addresses it pretty serious. And I testify again to every man who receives circumcision that he is under obligation to the whole law. If you're going to make yourself under the law, you're under obligation to the whole law. This is where he gets serious. You have been severed from Christ. You who are seeking to be justified by the law, you have fallen from grace. You have fallen from grace. I would say, this is just my own opinion, that what Paul is trying to say is it's not so much that Jesus dropped you, you fall from grace that way, but I would say that it's more that you have released yourself and you've fallen back into this law of justification and doing it yourself and coming outside of this awesome umbrella of grace that Christ offers. We've been saying Galatians is all about grace, all about what Christ did. And these people are going, well, it needs to be about what I do. Thank you, Jesus. I'll take some of that. I'll get a little bit of that, but I still need to do this other stuff. And Paul's going, it doesn't work that way. You have literally been severed from Christ when you do that. And I would say that Paul's saying, you're severing yourself. You're the one doing that. Maybe it doesn't matter. But verse 5, for we through the Spirit by faith are waiting for the hope of righteousness. For in Christ Jesus, neither circumcision or uncircumcision means anything, but faith working through love. Keep that in mind. Working through love. Faith working through love. You were running well. Who hindered you from obeying the truth? This persuasion did not come from him who calls you. A little leaven leavens a whole lump of dough. I think when he says this, he's not going to give us a name, but he really is thinking of somebody in particular. Listen to how this next verse goes. That's why I think he says that little leaven does the whole thing of dough. I think he's talking that there's been one person particularly who's come in here and kind of given you this poison of thought. I don't know who that is. But, verse 10, I have confidence in you in the Lord that you will adopt no other view, but the one who is disturbing you shall bear his judgment, whoever he is. Clearly, right? So somebody's coming in. It's interesting, he doesn't name them. Maybe it's Satan. We're going to talk about that in a little bit here, but I don't know. Verse 11, but I, brethren, if I still preach circumcision, why am I still persecuted? Then the stumbling block of the cross has been abolished. Would that those who are troubling you would even mutilate themselves. Wow, he has just taken something that the Jewish nation would have been very precious to them. This idea of circumcision, all the way back to Abraham, something that was a clear indication of marking yourself towards the Lord, setting yourself apart. Circumcision was a very serious deal. Do you know what Paul just did there? He's saying when you are doing it now outside of grace, you're doing nothing different than the pagans who would cut themselves and mutilate themselves for their silly gods. He's actually saying this practice of this legal thing that you do is no different than what the pagans do. That's pretty serious, isn't it? So these are serious words. You're severed from Christ, but you're also doing something like the pagans do, just mutilating yourself. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Pretty wild. A couple more verses. For you were called to freedom. Here we are again. For you were called to freedom, brethren. Only do not turn your freedom into an opportunity for the flesh, but through love, serve one another. We're going to talk about that in a minute. For the whole law is fulfilled in one word. I love this. In the statement, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Keep that in mind. Keep freedom and loving other people in mind. They are brothers. Okay? But if you bite and devour one another, take care lest you be consumed by one another. Okay? All right. Here's what I'd like to do. I want to start calling this points to ponder. Okay? When we want to, take things out of this. Things to think about. Okay? Especially in our mind, what we just talked about, like what Christ did for us and that kind of thing, but also with this allegory of slaves versus free people, a slave nation versus free nation. Okay, this is an allegory again, but Paul is saying that you, as a Christ follower, have been taken out of that one and put into something free, and it's for freedom that Christ has called us into this. So I want to take a look at, some of you get bulletins, some of you don't. It's okay, I'm going to tell you what these are. Some of these questions that I put in our bulletin. Just something to think about before we do these couple points to ponder. Why on earth would we ever go back? In other words, you've been freed from something. Why on earth would you ever go back? For some of you, why on earth are you not getting out of your cell when the door is wide open? That we can talk about that too. Another question to think about is, what does it say about people who would go back? Like, why? What would you go back for? And then another one is considering what Christ did on the cross. Those who fought, died, and bled for our freedom, would they reconsider if they knew that one day those people that were emancipated and liberated would just go back? Like, you ever wonder, like, would they reconsider it? If Jesus could see you now, it's not meant to be condemning, but if he could see your life now, would he still say it was worth getting up on the cross? I had that written in my Bible for a long time. It's a little bit condemning, but it also calls me to the quick of like, what is my life an example? Your life should be something someone else wants. Yeah. That's the gospel. Even if you're going through pain or tough stuff, somebody will be like, you know what, I'd still rather have their demeanor. I'd still rather have the Spirit in that person and go through what they're going through than being pretty comfortable in this and feeling miserable. That's what a Christian should be. That's what church, it's what we do here. It's why we sing the songs. That's why we go through this, to get empowered by the Holy Spirit, to go out into a community where they would look at us and go, I want what you have. What is it? I keep praying all the time. God, make the gospel easy for us, because people go, you got to tell me what you have. Right? Isn't that awesome when somebody else comes up to you? You got to tell me what you have. You go, I'm glad you asked. So I got Jesus, and sometimes it's hard to explain, but he is in me, and he brings a peace that surpasses all comprehension. And he's taken my life, and he's completely restored it. He has renewed that thing that he thought of when he made me. He's renewed that, and all I can tell you is I could care less what happens to me. I'm living this life that's just incredible. Boy, don't you want that? I want that. I want people to think we're nuts sometimes. You know what I mean? So let's finish up. I just want to look at 4 points to ponder in the idea of this: the psychology of going back. I think it'll be helpful. I want to look at it as compared to Israel. I want to look at it as what we do. Just 4 points, and I'm calling it the psychology of going back, okay? And the question we're saying is, why do we so easily or quickly return to imprisonment or bondage when we've been freed. And some of you may need to ask yourself, why am I still sitting in it when the chains are broken and when the door is wide open? Okay? So for some of you, it's, why am I not just leaving this cell? For some of you, it's, why am I going back into it? I had an image one time, God gave me a clear picture of something that I was sort of just kind of involved in. And for me, God said, you know what you're doing right now? You're going back into the cell that I freed you from, and you are literally sitting down on the cold floor, and you are trying to reconstruct the chain that's been broken into pieces, but you're sort of trying to fit it back on you. And you try to do it, and it all falls to the floor again. But yet I'm sitting on the floor. And God gave me this huge picture. I was just like, yeah, let's not do that anymore. Point one, why do we do this? Well, I think part of it is that there's safety in what we've come to know. There's safety in what we've come to know. In Acts, Acts 7:39 is a verse where Stephen is giving sort of the entire story of the Bible. He's explaining how all of it has led up to now, what Christ has done. A lot of these guys, it's really cool. Paul does this, Peter does this. Sometimes when you're reading Acts, you're going, boy, I'm hearing the whole story over again. But it's like, it's a documentation of Stephen being persecuted and saying, look, I know the entire story. And so he goes through the whole story, gets to Christ, explains what's going on. But one of the things he says, particularly in 7:39, is he talks about Israel as people who were saying they kind of wish they could go back to Egypt, or like almost like they long to go back. He's quoting Exodus 14:11 through 12 and Numbers 14:2 through 4. You can go back and read those someday. That's Israel. So this illustration of Israel, just like these people have been shown so much. Guys, when I'm reading the Old Testament, and I think of people going, why doesn't God just show himself to us? Think of atheists who will say, I don't believe in him because why doesn't he just show himself? And I'm always just thinking to myself, he did that. He did that hugely, and it still didn't work. I don't understand it. Israel saw all this stuff, but yet they would still go back. What kind of psychology makes somebody do that? Well, I think it's that there's safety. There's a safety feeling in what we've come to know. Really strange. But here's number two. There's also a comfort in what we've become accustomed to. What we've become accustomed to. Or scarier than that is what we've assimilated to. But we'll talk about that with our third point. What we've become accustomed to, this idea of becoming accustomed. Learning to find comfort in your current situation. To where it's accustomed to it. It doesn't really change who you are, but you sort of just deal with it. And you learn to become accustomed to it, and you kind of accept, okay, it's kind of an acceptance, right? And we do that in prison. Now, each one of these, I'm going to kind of give you a bit of a movie illustration. Hopefully you don't mind. Some people are super against movies. I'm kind of a movie buff, but I think of this one, comfort in what we've been accustomed to. Anybody ever see or read The Count of Monte Cristo? When Edmond Dantes finally gets out of this prison that he was wrongfully put in for many years, I forget how many years he was in, whipped every year as an anniversary to his being put in there, finally escapes. It's a really cool movie. You get to see it. Really clean movie, actually, Count of Monte Cristo. And now, one of the things that the guy that helped him get out told him about was this treasure of Monte Cristo, and he finds it. So he goes from nothing to like more wealthy than any count living in the area. And so he buys this huge mansion, he does all this stuff, but his whole purpose is to get revenge. Is to get revenge on the people that put him in there, okay? And that changes at the end, but it's pretty cool. The only reason I'm saying that, one of the things that's so riveting to me, and then with this point here, that there's comfort in what we've become accustomed to, there's a scene where the Count's, Edmond Dantes's servant comes into the room and he's still asleep. And he looks on this beautiful, gorgeous bed and he's looking around and he can't find him. And it's because he's still sleeping on the floor next to the bed. God, when I think of the Father, looking at some of the things that we and you have become so accustomed to that we return to it. when he's going, I made you this bed. Oh my goodness, and you're on the floor? Just weird stuff like that. We become accustomed to stuff. But number 3, it's the one I said that's a little bit scarier. We actually have assimilated into an identity of a slave or a prisoner. This is a little bit different than accustomed. Becoming accustomed to something is sort of just kind of going, okay, I've gotten used to it. It's not me, but okay. When you become assimilated, it's like accepting it and letting your identity become that thing. So you're like, I guess this is what I am now. I am a slave. I am this. And some of us, the reason we return back is because we can't think of any other life except this is what I am. I'm a prisoner to this thing. I'm a slave to this thing. We actually identify as a prisoner, and I just, how that must break his heart. He doesn't see you that way. The movie I was thinking of with this one, and forgive me because it's a harsh movie. The problem with this movie is it's probably one of the best movies ever made, and I really mean that when I say it. But it's harsh. It's The Shawshank Redemption. Now, it's harsh because it deals with prison life and the things that happen in prison to some people, and they're just, you know, they're as clean about it as they can be, but you kind of know some stuff, and then obviously some swearing. There's some, you know, the guards don't speak all nicely, you know. But other than that, what an incredible movie. The reason I mention that one is because one of the guys finally gets out after just 50 years. And he gets out, he's trying to work back in the normal world again, and he's writing letters back to the guys, kind of this group of friends that have come together. His name was Brooks Hadley, and he decides to take his life. He hangs himself outside of prison. And he tells the guys, like, I just don't like it out here. And, you know, when he went in, he was a kid, and when he's getting out, it's much later. And he's like, you know, everybody, one of the things he says to the guys, he writes to the guys, like, everybody's in such a hurry now. And the cars are faster, and everybody's in. And so he gets a job that maybe the government helped him get, bagging groceries. And the manager's really mean to him and treating him like an ex-con, you know? And he just doesn't like it. And one of the things he writes to the guys is like, I sure just miss it there. I want to come back there. And he goes, maybe I should shoot the manager at the store and they'll let me come back. And plus, it'll be a plus because I'll take this guy out. It's kind of funny. But then he takes his life. And they're all sitting around together. And they can't believe he would do that. He's free. All these guys, imagine it, you guys. They're all sitting there like that's the thing they want. The one guy in their group that gets that, and he goes out and he hangs himself. And they're like, how can that be, right? And Red, the main character, played by Morgan Freeman, he just goes, he was institutionalized. And they look at him like, what? He says, he was institutionalized, meaning that he became somebody in here. He was somebody in here. He identified as somebody in here. He ran the library, and he would bring the books to the guys. He had purpose in this place. When he left this place and went out there, he didn't have that purpose anymore. And never was able to find it, never could find it, and so he took his own life. And so Red calls that being institutionalized. And I want to tell you, when I think of assimilating to this identity of slavery, some of us, if that's what's causing us to have such a hard time breaking free from it, or at least, you know, staying away from it, not coming back to it. Number 4. Oh, I'm sorry. I want you to see something. This assimilation, I almost skipped over this verse that I really want to read. This is the verse I gave you, by the way. This is Acts 7:39. Listen to actually how Stephen quotes Exodus 14 and Numbers 14. He says, our fathers refused to obey him, but thrust him aside, and in their hearts turned back to Egypt. I want you to see that he added in their hearts. It was in their hearts to return back to Egypt, to be back to being a slave. That tells me more than just to customize something, but assimilate it to something. You get catching me? And the last one, why is it so hard? Why do we return back to prison? And I would say some of it's just plain old zippity-doo-dah fear of freedom. Fear of independence. My dad My dad used to say this: the true freedom is not just being free to act, basically to do whatever you want, and do whatever you want now, however you want now. The true freedom is being able to do those things or be able to do that tomorrow. Really interesting. Never understood it as a kid. Being free means you can decide what you want to do right now, but true freedom is you can still decide what you want to do tomorrow. And I realized what he meant by that, especially to his stupid teenage kid. Think of it this way. This is the simplest way. You can be standing at the top of a building, looking down 50, 60, 70 stories, and in your freedom can decide, I'm a bird, and I'm going to jump, and I'm even going to flap my arms really hard. And you're free to do that. You won't be free to do that the next day. Does that make sense? And there's a reason I shared this one. This idea of why would we ever go back? Why would we ever be afraid of freedom? And can I just say, why would we ever? Because the possibility that there's responsibility that comes with it. I know this is kind of a hard charge, but I think sometimes that we are afraid of freedom because of the responsibility that comes with it. Now you're free, keep your freedom. Stay free. Guess what? That means living a good way, living a free way, living free. This is hard for some people. In prison, well, they gave you 3 squares a day and just kind of left you alone. You didn't have to think too much. Do you understand? There's almost a laziness to slavery in a prison, of being a prisoner, shackled. Okay, just get me my food tomorrow and I'll just sit here. Freedom, all of a sudden, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Here's the movie I want to, this is one of my favorite parts of any movie ever, and I've been excited to finally get to share this one with you. If you guys have seen the movie Les Miserables, the movie, not the sing-along one, I don't like that one. It's hard for me to see Gladiator, Russell Crowe being like, I had a sandwich today. Like, come on, don't sing everything. Sing the good songs and talk to each other. I hate that. Because it doesn't feel like, anyway, I'm not going to go off on that. But the movie is incredible. I think we've talked about this. This part breaks me down, and it's going to be hard for me to even read it right now. What happens is, let me just fill you in. Let me fill you in here really quick. Jean Valjean just out of prison. He's been in prison for a long time. Notice all my movie things are prison ideas. He gets out, and he's laying on a park bench, and it's cold, and he's just laying there. And a guy comes up to him. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm out of prison. There's no way anybody's going to trust me. There's nowhere to stay. He actually says, there's nowhere to stay. I've asked everyone. You remember what the guy says to him? Well, you haven't asked him. I could start crying, you guys. And he points to the monastery. And so he knocks on the monastery, and the priest lets him right in. And he's sitting there eating food, and he's eating it probably the way that he did in prison, kind of protecting his bowl. And he's looking at her, and the wife's a little bit like, what do we let this guy in here for? But the priest is kind of like trying to love on him. And they're sitting there at the table, and he looks up, and he says, thank you for a warm place to stay, a nice shower, a nice meal, and in the morning, I will leave an honest man. That's what he tells them. Okay, nighttime comes, everybody goes to bed. Suddenly, this same cloaked character, you can kind of see him, is going back into the dining room where they were, and he's scooping up all the silverware. And he's putting it in a bag, and he takes the silver, puts it in, takes more silver, and he goes to turn, and the priest is standing there. He sees exactly what he's doing. Remember what he does? He hauls off and punches the priest so hard, knocks him out. And he leaves. Next scene, they're kind of gardening. And his wife is gardening, and she's crying because her silver has been stolen. And he's just kind of, and here comes the guy with 2 police officers. He's bound, and they bring him back. And they bring him to the priest, and he goes, yeah, can you believe this guy said that you gave him the silverware? You gave him the silver? Like, are you kidding me? And you're like, oh crap, he's caught. Oh boy, now he's like in trouble. And brings him right up to the priest, and the priest gets right up to him with this look. And he says, I'm very disappointed with you. Very disappointed with you. Like he's going to get a speech and like, go back to prison. He's like, why did you not also take the candlesticks? They're worth way more. Oh man, and that's right, I just start crying. This grace extended, there's no more better part of a movie where grace is extended than in this movie. And he says to him, why did you not take those? And he has his wife go get him, she's just like I'm not into the grace thing. I didn't sign up for this like you did. And so he puts these big old silver candlesticks. You can tell they'd be worth money. He puts them in his bag, and he kind of puts it in his bag, and he shoves it back to him, and he kind of holds them. And this is what he says to him. He says, my friend, before you go, here are your candlesticks. Take them. But do not forget, never forget, that you have promised to use this money in becoming an honest man. Jean Valjean, my brother, is right. You no longer belong to evil, but to good. It is your soul that I buy from you. I withdraw it back. I withdraw from it the black thoughts and the spirit of perdition, and I give it to God. You must use this precious silver to become an honest man. Such grace. Why would we ever go back? I think sometimes it's because this grace has been extended. Got all this silver, all this stuff. Jean Valjean's like going back down the road. He's trying to figure out, what am I going to do now? I have so much money. Is he actually thinking about, like, now I got to be an honest man? Like sometimes I think that's what we think of. Now I got to be honest. Is there a lot of work in being honest? No. Just be an honest guy. The movie goes on, and he just changes his whole life, changes an entire town because he becomes this mayor, and everybody talks about how loving and great he is. It's just so good. Okay, concluding. Guys, we have a choice to make. We have a choice to make. Listen to God's word or listen to our enemy. Listen to God's word or listen to an enemy, our enemy. In verse 1 and verse 13 of chapter 5, this is where Paul says, we're called to freedom. Don't be subjected to slavery again. And then he says, use that freedom to love others. You all heard it. You can't get away from it. It's what he says. That's what God's called us to do. Ever notice how people who are bound to stuff or struggling with stuff, pull back on stuff? It's hard for them to show love or strength to other people. It's why we're free to be able to do that. The enemy, however, you guys, the enemy's word is what we just talked about. What we just talked about. He whispers to you, just stay safe. He whispers to you, stay comfortable. It's a scary world out there. He says to you, this is who you are now. You can't really be that change that God's telling you. That's what he tells you. He whispers that to you. He says, I'll take care of you. Freedom is kind of scary. And do you know what starts to happen in those moments? That's when we start believing the enemy. Can I just tell you something I firmly believe in? It's something Dutch Sheets talks about. That's when strongholds are made. That's when strongholds are made. Dutch Sheets says, it's not what happens to us that creates a stronghold, but what we believe about what happens that causes the stronghold. And guess who's right in your ear to get you to believe the wrong stuff? So, you've been abused when you were a little kid. Guess who's in your ear going, that's who you are. You're supposed to be a victim and living like that for the rest of your life. God tries to free you from that and go, I got a life for you, man. I got healing for you. But the enemy would go, no, I need you to believe this about your past or about your circumstances. I need you to believe this about what that person just said about you. That's a stronghold, you guys. That's believing it. Do you know, and this is what I'm really starting to believe, and I don't know this for sure, but I believe we're the ones that actually build the stronghold based on the lies of the enemy. We get a chance to go, wait a minute, no, and the stronghold can come down. That's when the stronghold can come down. But when we listen to him and actually start believing him, the lies, it goes through that whole list I just shared you. Safety, becoming accustomed, becoming assimilated, all those things, that's Satan going, yeah, that's you. How many things this morning do you have that you've believed about yourself that are not things that God told you, that are things the enemy? There are things to this day that still I'm going, boy, Lord, I got to give that back to you. I got to give that back to you. I got to give that back to you. Like, it's so many things. We need to understand. Here's why. Let me wrap up this. Right? Paul, the reason he says that our freedom is not just to be taken in the flesh, but it's to serve others. You know why he says that? Listen to this. If you heard nothing else today. Because leaving your prison cell, woohoo, I'm free, and you leave the prison cell to go out and start serving yourself is walking straight into another prison cell. Hear that. You didn't get free to just go out and do that stuff. You got free so you can be like, this is what Christ does in me. I want to tell you about it and begin to have the strength and the empowerment to go love on other people. That's why Paul brings that up. So he says we're free, but we're free to do that. That's where the whole freedom comes with some responsibility. You got to see that, you guys. Now, surrender, we keep talking about surrender, right? Surrender seems contrary to freedom, doesn't it? Sometimes? Can you see that? Surrender seems like, oh, I'm surrendering my whole life to something else. And it feels like I just got free from something, but now I got to surrender. Can I just tell you? And this is something God gave me while we were singing, and so I had to quick throw this in. It's literally like a written fast note right at the end. And I'm working with this one, so you work with it too, and then we can talk about it later. I felt like God said, surrender, the reason you think it's contrary and don't understand it is because your imprisonment and your bondage is like how can I say it? You're the warden. You're the jailer. You're the one that's keeping you in there. I think we need to start seeing that to some degree. I'm working through that word. But the idea that you are the one, there's not something on top of you saying you need to stay in this prison. Nothing. The only one that has all authority is saying you're not supposed to stay in that prison, right? So if you still have that feeling, I've got to be in that prison, that's you. You're the jailer. You're the warden. See what I'm saying? So surrender is about going, okay, Lord, I'm going to listen to what you say. I'm going to agree with what you say. I'm not a prisoner. You hold the keys. Let's get out of here. Let's do it. I'm going to pray, and I just want to pray, because everything I always say up here, I know, is not just going to guarantee like, oh, good, we all got it, let's go. We're all good, and, we need to pray about it. Okay, so that's how I want to end. I want to pray about this stuff, because I know some of it is very difficult. Some of it's very difficult. So let's pray. Lord, wow, prison. Those thoughts of just what keeps us in, what keeps us going back to it, all those things, Lord. I know you gave me those things because they're things that I've struggled with. I've struggled with every single one of them. And then, Lord, sometimes that fear of leaving the cell, of leaving where we are, is overwhelming, especially when we're listening to our enemy. So can I ask you a couple things, Lord? One, help us to see that loving and graceful, incredible opening up to a whole world that you want us to enter into of your kingdom, of freedom. Lord, will you help us to see that with better eyes? But then also, Lord, number two, the second thing I want to ask you, Lord, is will you just help us to distinguish better the enemy's voice in our life? Lord, he's gotten good at disguising it, and he speaks really softly sometimes, and he makes sense sometimes, Lord. Will you help us to really distinguish his voice so we can stop listening to him, so we can stop becoming bound to strongholds because we believe what he says? How that must break your heart, Lord, when we do that. Why would we ever listen to anybody else? Your word's clear that it was for freedom that you set us free. Help us be free today. Help us not be afraid of it. It's the only thing I can pray, Lord. Will you help us do that? And anybody today, just Father, as we go into our week, I just ask you to bless each person in this room. I love these guys so much. Whether we're coming with me to go over to Alice's house and sing a little bit, or they're going home to do their thing, to get started for the week, whatever they're doing, Lord, give them a blessed Sunday afternoon of rest, Lord, of recuperation, true Sabbath, all of that. Lord, will you grant that to each person here as we leave this place? In Jesus' precious name, amen.